Several U.S. states are banning gaming PCs. High-end gaming PCs banned in 6 U.S. states after California energy bill limits. Dell is canceling Alienware gaming. Sorry, guys. Gamers are really stupid. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, if it's one thing that I like on the internet is getting clickbaited to death. Sometimes I appreciate the clickbait, okay? But half the time, I absolutely dislike the clickbait because sometimes when you're writing the words, U.S. states are banning gaming PCs, high-end banned, that's a pretty heavy implication. So if you haven't noticed, California and a few other states, let me get the list out here real quick. California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington are beginning to prevent gamers from buying high-spec gaming PCs. You're really not saying banning now? All right, so I guess we're gonna... Oh, I guess that wasn't juicy in the headlines. What's going on right now are these states in question have actually promoted new regulations regarding power consumption. And what they're trying to do is basically regulate parts or computers in general. And they're trying to ensure that a sort of compliance is reached regarding their yearly power consumption. Now, going to Dell.com, the way that anybody noticed this was people found out that eventually this Dell Alienware Aurora R12 gaming desktop wasn't being shipped to those states. Now, even in Canada, you cannot ship this to the province of British Columbia due to adopted power consumption regulations. Any orders placed that are bound to this province will be canceled. So it's even a Canadian thing, by the way, too. It's not just an American endeavor. So what's going on? For those of you who don't know who British Columbia is, basically that's the opposite side of Toronto, like the opposite side of the country. That's sort of our version of California. Ladies and gentlemen, these devices are not being shipped because they don't meet power consumption regulation. Now, if you look inside these devices, all right, you'll see that one such product is actually exempt. You can buy this in British Columbia. Now, if you look at the prices, it's kind of looking very similar. So you actually get the same processor, the i5-11400F. Between these two, you get the NVIDIA GTX 1650 in this one that's banned from British Columbia, but you get the GTX 1660 Super, which is allowed to go to British Columbia. You've also got RAM over here, and then you've got, you know, different sort of SSD set. Actually, you got a better setup going on over here. Point is, ladies and gentlemen, this device cannot be shipped for power regulation reasons, and this device can be, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's slip away from Alienware. Now, reading all those inflammatory articles, I was wondering, oh my God, their gamers are truly oppressed. They're ruining gaming. They're banning PCs. Well, it's not as clickbaity as you would think. So, okay, like what news media won't fucking do, I ended up deciding to go dig down a little deeper into this, okay? So this is the California Energy Commission, all right? So this is Appliance Efficiency Proceedings Title 20. Now, I had to look real hard into this situation, but eventually I found amendments to computer monitors and whatnot, and then I ended up going to the regulation resource page. So here in the resource page, they actually said the Title 20 products include central air conditioners, heat pumps, computers, cooking and washing products, electronics, fans and dehumidifiers, heating products, lighting products, motor products, plumbing products, pool products, anything but dildos is listed in the situation. Now, eventually, I decided to look even further into the computer side. So, in the computer docket log, I ended up finding the final statement of reasons, which was 2017 computer monitor, signage, whatever. So, eventually, opening this one up, it's a 2017 piece, all right? This is a 2016 Appliance Efficiency Rulemaking Staff Report. Now, here in the executive summary, okay, proposed regulations for computers. Let's read this together. Based on the potential for energy savings and other considerations, staff has included desktop computers, including integrated desktops and portable all-in-ones, notebooks, mobile gaming systems, 2-in-1 notebooks, mobile workstations, basically any type of laptop, small-scale servers, basically like what I have provisioning VMs down in my basement, thin clients, including mobile thin clients, basically small PCs that, you know, can get their Citrix VMs and all that stuff. Workstations, all right, rack-mounted workstations in the proposed regulations. So here, the core opportunity for energy savings in computers is found in reducing the amount of energy consumed in idle modes. That is, when the computer is on, but it's not being used. Idle modes are the largest opportunity to reduce energy consumption because computers spend roughly half of the time in this on mode. In addition, high idle mode consumption greatly increases the effectiveness of power management settings to overall reduce computer energy consumption. Automatic power management settings are often disabled, which means computers are constantly consuming significant amounts of power when not in use. So what they're effectively talking about is when you go to your start button, I'm on Linux, but I got a sleep option, right? On Windows, this will be called suspend, and on Mac, it'll be called sleep. Basically, by clicking this, the system powers down. It doesn't turn itself off, it just powers down. So when you leave your computer and you come back and you tap the space bar, it'll just blow up and you'll be able to use your computer within seconds, all right? That's what we're talking about with idle modes. Now, a lot of gamers will turn this shit off. For me, I actually use power modes pretty efficiently. So for me, this is specifically going to people who just leave their computers running for 3 hours a day without ever setting it to sleep. And yes, they're not wrong. You are consuming far more energy like that unless you had actually, just clicked, your start button, hit sleep, and walked away. That's a true fact. So this is what their actual regulations were. They weren't out there to target PC gamers. They were out there to target the people that leave their computers behind and let them run for 4 to 5 hours just burning energy. And over time, this led to millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars of a cost to the California energy agencies, which I can understand their frustration for sure. Now, this ended up leading me to the group called Ace Resources, which is actually, in their words, by the way, the one-stop shop providing no-cost tools, training, and resources to help appliance and building industry professional decode and comply with Title 20 and Title 24. So basically, what these people have been doing is they've picked up 4 dates, okay? So January 1st, 2018 was when this was starting. So standards for workstations, mobile workstations, rack-mounted workstations, small-scale servers, and high expandability computers. Then January 1st, 2019 comes where they have the Tier 1 standards kicking in for desktop computers. Then July 1st, which is where we're at right now, which is Tier 2 standards for desktop computers, thin clients, and mobile gaming systems. This right here is what I understand to be the reason why Dell is unable to ship the Alienware computer. Now, full stop right now, you can actually stop the video right here. If you're not buying a pre-built and you're buying a computer, you're buying the parts separately to build on your own, as far as I know, you're not affected. You can still build your gaming computer, which there's plenty of YouTube tutorials online for you to watch and figure out for yourself. If you are buying a gaming computer, this is where a lot of companies like iBuyPower, Origin PC, a lot of these, companies that specially create gaming computers will now have to build specific SKUs, basically specific models that they can ship in all 50 states and all 14 provinces in Canada. If you can't do that, you're going to have to separate which PCs you can ship to California, for instance, and which PCs you can ship to Texas or New York or whatever. Anybody that doesn't have to abide by California and their, cohorts energy guidelines. That's effectively what you're going to have to go. The only reason, back again, why these PCs aren't shipping is not necessarily because they don't meet the compliance standards, is because right now, Dell hasn't gone through that extra effort to sort of really figure out if this does meet compliance or not. Right now, they're just looking at this device as a whole, and they're getting rid of it. In the next coming months, a lot of these companies are going to sort this out for the better. Right now, regulations have just kicked in, so they have to take some time to really get things going. So the last thing I said was kind of weird, right? These companies have to make different SKUs. And the reason for that is this regulation specifically mentions something called an expandability score. Now, I've just started to realize what an expandability score is, so I'm going to try to explain it the best way that I can. Title 20 standards are cost-effective, technically feasible, and limit the amount of electricity computers and monitors are allowed to consume when not in active mode. So again, they're targeting the power consumption in that idle state, okay? If that can fit the bill, they're not specifically out there to ruin your gamer moments. So the ES, the expandability score, considers the number and type of interfaces offered. There are also allowances for additional energy use if the computer offers additional functionality. So something like add-in cards, additional hard disks, graphic cards, high bandwidth system memory, which is effectively a fancy way of saying, DDR3, DDR4, GDD, whatever memory you have, that bottom base is described by how much bandwidth it's getting, right? High-speed expanded Ethernet capability, which we'll actually get into why they're mentioning that, integrated displays. So I don't know if they're talking about the iGPU or they're talking about like an all-in-one device with an actual monitor built in. Refresh rates above 300 hertz. So specifically those 360 hertz monitors, I don't have them, but I guess they sap way more power than you could expect. System memory. And then you've got video surveillance cards, so, you know, stuff that you stick your surveillance cameras or IP cameras into, and wired Ethernet or fiber cards. So you got a bunch of these that give you, if you have any of these additional functionalities, you get an extra allowance on your ES score. So from what I'm understanding regarding the expandability score regulations is, let's look at something like the GPD Win 3 that I covered a couple of days ago, a week ago, where I looked at it playing basically, you know, high-end PC games on a portable device. Now, that device will never consume as much power as my gaming workstation, right? However, because my gaming workstation has the allowance for added expandability, I have a higher overall allowance. So in some weird, fucked up way, this smaller device is being regulated harder than the larger device that I have. Now, while initially I thought it was weird, I sort of understand it as sort of a, one-size-fits-all solution kind of deal, where they're really sort of factoring in people that have, you know, devices that are lower end in nature, and they're trying to sort of harmonize their power efficiency along with people that have higher end parts anyway. So obviously the higher end parts are going to draw more power on sleep mode or on idle mode, but that's also relative to the power that they, you know, exhibit. So I think that's kind of what they're going with. So this is kind of the math we're going with the maximum power consumption. Basically, it's a really massive formula that you're going to have to go with. And while that's not the most important part, it's how they're regulating it. So here's desktop computers, thin clients, mobile gaming systems, which is basically gaming laptops, portable all-in-ones, notebook computers, desktop computers, thin clients, mobile gaming systems, portable, blah, 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 blah. Surprisingly, they're not mentioning consoles like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S and X, which also consume a fair bit of power when they're on full load. So what they're going for is it has to comply and it has to be shipped with power management settings that do both of the following: transition the computer into a sleep mode or computer off mode. So here what they're basically saying is, in the operating system, like for me on Linux, when I go to energy saving, it will actually switch off the screen after 10 minutes, okay? And I can also suspend the session, and I can do a bunch of other things to basically suspend my computer, and I can go to advanced settings. That's what they're effectively saying, right? They want the actual operating system, like Windows, to basically suspend the computer after 30 minutes if you're not using it. So let's go down even further. Now, this is the allowance that they're giving, so 50 kilowatts a year plus applicable adders, which we just talked about a little earlier. So depending on which computer type you have, this is the base kilowatt a year allowance on idle that you're allowed to have. And then they can add applicable adders if they apply at all. So let's say, again, your computer has that GPU, your computer has a higher performance, it has all those applicable adders. This will all factor in. Now, again, it goes back to those systems that Dell wasn't selling. From what I understand, they just got these regulations. They haven't done the math to realize just how much certain adders allow them to ship to California. So it's very likely that those Aurora gaming systems that haven't shipped yet could actually legally be able to ship after they've done the math. So here you've got an extra rule that we're going to read just for the sake of it. This is the last bit. I know if I've lost you anywhere in this video, it's probably there for the sake of it. I know it's not as juicy as some of the clickbait that you can read, but here they've mentioned small scale servers. So again, like the server I have in my basement, high expandability computers, which are gaming computers like the one that I have and you probably have, mobile workstations and workstations. So here they're mentioning that these are the regulations that apply specifically to those systems. So they must be powered by an internal power supply that meets or exceeds the standards in table V9, or an external power supply that meets the level of efficiency described in the International Efficiency Marketing Protocol. So basically they want you to have a gold power, like absolutely good power supply, okay? That's what they want you to have, an efficient, good power supply. Then they want you to incorporate energy efficient Ethernet functionality. Now, people might be laughing at that, but there's actually things called power over Ethernet, and when you use Ethernet in scale and you're sending power, like for instance to a surveillance camera. Surveillance cameras can be powered through the Ethernet. This is what they're talking about. They want you to energy efficient those Ethernet protocols and those systems. And that does matter a lot, again, when you factor in scale, right? Like one Ethernet, okay, yeah, maybe that's not that big of a deal. But when you're dealing with 50, 100 pieces of it, then it all starts to add up. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that really brings us to the end of this entire scenario. So no, gaming PCs are not being banned. If anything, this is regulation that's sort of been set and prescribed and sort of brought up for like years. Now, the reason with this regulation is if it was sort of brought up in 2016, 2017, 2018, when you make regulations like this, there's a compliance period, right? So companies have to get their shit together or stop operating in a state like this. So that's effectively what you're looking at in this situation. So do I agree with every single thing that they're going for? No. But you know what I think they're trying to target? I think they're trying to target people that are crypto miners, individuals that are massive energy users in their house, because I think there are a lot of people guilty of just leaving their computers running and letting the, energy bill rise up. And yeah, while sure, you're paying for the bill, at the end of the day, it's still wasted energy that I totally understand if the energy department is getting pissed about. Now, at the end of the day, this doesn't affect people that build their own computers. I don't know if they can even regulate individual parts. I think that would be a little too wild if they could. But from what I'm absolutely gathering and understanding in this entire situation, this is the new energy guideline that has been set. No, the gaming PCs aren't getting banned. However, their energy efficiency is being taken into account. And in this case, what I don't see being mentioned by a lot of news articles is that regardless of them banning certain things, regardless of their kilowatt usage per year, they're not factoring in that once you look at those adders again and you add them and factor them into how much you're allowed given the type of PC you're selling, a lot of these gaming PCs are probably going to get back into the market somehow. Right now, the regulation just kicked in and nobody's willing to break it, so they're just going overboard with over-regulating themselves. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, no, gaming PCs aren't getting banned. You can still build your own, and hey, if they start fucking around and banning parts, then that's really going to suck. But hey, at least in that case, you can just ask your buddy from like Texas to buy a graphic card and ship it over to you or something. Not an ideal case, I would say, but again, that's if they start regulating parts, which I don't think they're ever going to go to. It's really difficult to get regulations up in the first place. So yeah, I think that's where the story ends. So ladies and gentlemen, I know it's a long video, a bit dry, but I hope it sort of cleared up a lot of misconception. That said though, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.